We've got a little bit of breaking news for you this morning. Rick Haythornthwaite, who has chaired Centrica Network Rail, is to succeed Sir Howard Davis as chair of the bank, the NatWest Group, in the wake of the row about the debanking of Nigel Farage. Dame Allison, of course, was the woman who was in charge. She's supposedly leaving at the end of the year. Maybe she'll be leaving a little bit sooner now that this has happened. And we're going to talk to Sarah Phillimore, co-founder of the Fair Cop Group now, because funnily enough, we're talking about the debanking scandal. We saw the Nigel Farage story. We then saw the Richard Tice story at the weekend. Richard Tice, of course, was debanked because of his political views. He applied to the financial giant Swiss Re about a possible loan, and he was told that he could not get a loan from them because the company for which he was applying for the loan was run by him. And he is currently leader, they said, of Reform UK. Sarah, very good morning to you. Bit of interesting timing there. Literally, as we're about to speak to you, they announced a new chief for the NatWest Group.
Yes, that is interesting. I hope new brooms sweep clean, but I'm not overly confident, as you know.
Well, the new broom will still have to sweep clean over the recycled carpet installed by Dame Allison, who was very, very big on diversity and recycling and the greening of the banking system, as opposed to actually just getting on with the job.
Yeah, well, to continue the metaphor to its logical conclusion, this isn't just about the carpets, is it? This is the entire building.
Yeah.
These institutions appear to be running on these principles of not allowing people to participate in society if they hold views which are deemed unacceptable. And we see that applies to not merely people who voted for Brexit, but people who say that women don't have penises.
Right.
And I think this is all... It's just another branch on the same poison tree. I'm really interested to see Sir Mark Rowley, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner. He came out recently saying very strongly the police must not be aligning itself with politics. I mean, the same has got to apply with equal force to banks who provide essential financial services.
Yeah.
I appreciate they're under extra pressure. There are issues around criminal money laundering, politically exposed persons, etc. They have got to deal with that. But I think it was pretty clear from the documents that Nigel Farage got that he was debanked because they thought he was an unpleasant person and went against their policy of inclusivity.
Exactly right. And I wonder as well, Sarah, whether because we kind of discovered this banking scandal only really because Nigel Farage exploited it and totally gave it the oxygen of publicity, which we would otherwise never have found out. I wonder what other businesses are doing this, you know? You wonder, because I remember once being very concerned. It wasn't particularly sinister at the time, but I moved house when I was in Scotland from Glasgow to Edinburgh, and I got a letter in the post from a supermarket where I had a loyalty card, you know, one of these club card things, saying, we're very sorry to see that we haven't had you in the shop recently. Is there any reason why you haven't been visiting us? And I thought, well, hang on a minute, you know, why are you keeping tabs on me? And I immediately cut the card up and never went back to one of their shops again. But, you know, you do wonder what else they're looking at.
Well, exactly. And I think it's now so embedded. I think we have to assume in every single organisation. Looking at the pictures of police at Leicester Pride just recently, there's a police officer standing around with a progressive pride flag in their hand. This is not something the police should be having anything to do with, because it sends a message. If you don't support a particular political ideology, we are not here for you. Now, coming from a public body like the police, that's absolutely terrifying. And coming from a bank, well, not even that much less terrifying, given how much we all rely on financial services just to be part of the world. So I'm really glad that people like Nigel Farage spoke up, and I think he's shown the way. A lot of people are making subject access requests for their own private data and trying to understand why they have been suddenly debanked, because this is the problem, isn't it? We're not told. There's a silence, and they hide behind this, well, we can't tip you off if you're a money launderer. Right. Well, the Free Speech Union weren't money launderers, were they? They were denied services by PayPal. That was reinstated after a fuss. But not all of us have the profile or the friends to be able to cause an effective fuss. And that's when it gets really worrying.
And what Richard Tice found was that, unlike NatWest, when they sent their documents to Nigel Farage after he requested them, they didn't redact anything. But the banks have obviously learned from that, because some of the documents that he got were, in fact, redacted. So not everything that they said about him does he even know.
Well, it's very... I don't know how people apply the data protection rules. I'm subject access request to Eventbrite after they cancelled me.
Yeah.
And they gave me, I thought, quite a surprising amount of candid information. You know, their top brass discussing via email. She's got a bit of a point here. We can't dismiss her as hateful and violent. You know, how are we going to dismiss her? And they ended up landing on disparagement because apparently I disparaged trans people by saying that sex was real and it matters.
Oh, is that a problem now then? Disparagement? That's an interesting one. I'm in trouble.
Oh, well, that came within their policy of hatred and violence. Because, of course, it was absurd to accuse me or anyone else who was going to attend my movement of being hateful or violent, but they could get me under disparagement. I made a second subject access request to them after they cancelled a second event, and all I got was 6 pages of completely blacked out paper. So they'd obviously taken a slightly more conservative view then about what they were willing to disclose. I mean, this is the problem. I don't think anyone really understands data protection. They use it as a cloak to hide what they're doing, which is unlawful. I mean, I'm really glad to see that apparently the government are taking it seriously. The Financial Conduct Authority's got a review ongoing, not just into politically exposed people, but into the general problem. But we need transparency and openness about why people are being denied services. I appreciate we've got to balance that with criminal investigations, but I don't believe that. Is it seriously suggested that Richard Tice is undergoing some sort of money laundering operation and that's why he's been debanked? I don't think so.
Well, I mean,
this is about his political views, which are deemed repugnant.
Yeah, I mean, I once applied for a mortgage and I was asked all sorts of questions about money laundering, and I thought to myself, you know, everybody knows where the money launderers are. Everybody knows who they are. They're actually quite good at money laundering. You're probably never going to catch them. But I can tell you one thing, I ain't money laundering and I haven't got that kind of money. You can find that out very easily. You know, so as usual, they're missing the point, aren't they? It's a bit like going, you know, the human traffickers who are working the channel have got a massive network of criminality around the world. It's probably not that hard to track where the money is, but instead they're going after people like Nigel Farage and Richard Tice.
It's really, really worrying. As you know, I voted Remain. I think Brexit was a colossal and terrible mistake, but that doesn't mean that I can agree to deny people essential services because I disagree with them. As long as what they're doing is not criminal, they have a right to the same goods and services as everyone else. Right. So this whole noble project of inclusion and diversity is, of course, having exactly the opposite effect. It is excluding, it is making very undiverse our political landscape. And the message it's sending out is truly terrifying. Yeah. If you don't toe the line, you will be a non-person. You will not have a mortgage, you will not have a bank account, you will not have a role in society. And where do they think this is going to go? Because this is effectively advocating for the destruction of democracy. Yes. So what system are they putting in place? It is terrifying. I'm glad to see politicians taking notice, but I think the review of the banks is not due until June next year, which is a bit worrying. Well, we need action now.
I mean, let's hope that they've been put on notice, though, and at least the practice has, if not completely stopped, been very severely sort of, you know, curtailed and delayed anyway. Because the other problem for people who, and I was really quite surprised at how many people were defending Coots's stance and Coots's choice, and many of them were only driven by their own sort of hatred of Nigel Farage, and they didn't want to side with anything that he might think was a good idea. But you know, people who said things like, well, of course they're a private bank, they can do whatever they want, they can refuse to give somebody a bank account if they like. And you kind of go, well, yeah, maybe up to a point. However, they should at least then be having to give the information as to why they've done it. And also, if you're going to say to them that they can prevent you from having their services because they don't like what you think, what if that moves? How if that moves to something else where they say, well, we can't have you because you're a woman, or we can't have you because you're black, or we can't have you because you're Japanese? I mean, who knows?
Will it inevitably move to something like that? Because if you give power to people who make judgments on their own subjective views, then you are a victim to whatever those people in power think is the appropriate way to behave. Yeah. I got lots of ostensibly intelligent and educated people saying to me effectively, Nigel Farage's an idiot, he got what he deserved. Yeah. And I was saying, well, yeah, this isn't a really comfortable thought, though, is it? You're banking on the people who agree with you being in power and imposing their views, and that's fine as long as you agree with them. But what happens when the wind shifts a bit and you suddenly find that a view that you hold dear, veganism, is suddenly ridiculous and contemptible, and you find yourself in the same boat? It shows how embedded embedded it is that intelligent people are falling for this. They think the winds of history will never blow in a different way. They will always be on the side of the righteous. And that's just a shocking ignorance of even the last 100 years of history. That's why we need laws that protect everybody. As long as they're not criminals, you can say and do and think what you like, because the alternative is catastrophic for any functioning society. So, yeah, I hope that people are going to not take this lying down. Anyone who is debanked, make an immediate subject access request and try and find out why. Inform your MP.